When we think of elite military units today, the Special Air Service SAS stands at the forefront, a name synonymous with daring raids, stealth, and extraordinary courage. But the SAS had a beginning, and it began with one man, David Stirling. A tall, charismatic, and unconventional soldier, Stirling transformed modern warfare with his vision of small, highly trained units operating deep behind enemy lines. His story is one of audacity, ingenuity, and a refusal to accept the limitations of traditional military thinking. David Stirling was born on the 15th of November 1915 in Scotland, into an aristocratic family with a tradition of military service. Standing at over 6 feet tall, Stirling was a striking figure. Before the war, he dreamed of becoming an artist and even pursued mountaineering, showing early signs of the daring and determination that would later define his military career. When the Second World War broke out, Stirling joined the Scots Guards, though his rebellious spirit often clashed with rigid army discipline. By 1941, Stirling was serving in North Africa. He quickly grew frustrated with the conventional tactics employed against the Axis forces. The desert was vast, and large troop movements often failed against Rommel's experienced Africa Corps. Stirling envisioned something different. Instead of relying on heavy deployments, why not send small mobile groups of highly trained men to sabotage the enemy's airfields, supply depots, and communication lines? The idea was revolutionary. Stirling believed that such units could strike fear into the enemy, causing disproportionate damage compared to their size. But the high command was skeptical. At a time when military doctrine emphasized numbers and firepower, Stirling's vision of stealth, sabotage, and psychological warfare seemed far-fetched. Undeterred, Stirling pushed forward. In 1941, he managed to bypass traditional channels and pitched his idea directly to General Claude Auchinleck, Commander-in-Chief of the Middle East. Stirling argued with conviction that small commando-style raids could cripple enemy operations. Remarkably, Auchinleck approved the plan. Thus, the Special Air Service was born, originally as a deception unit to confuse the Axis into thinking the Allies had paratroopers operating in the desert. The SAS began as just 66 men. Their first mission, a parachute drop on Axis airfields in November 1941, was disastrous. Bad weather scattered the men, and many were killed or captured. Yet Stirling refused to let the setback end his vision. Adapting quickly, the SAS abandoned parachuting and partnered with the Long Range Desert Group, LRDG, using jeeps to slip behind enemy lines. The change in tactics was transformative. Stirling's men launched daring raids against Axis airfields, destroying hundreds of aircraft on the ground with explosives and incendiaries. These strikes severely weakened the Luftwaffe and Italian Air Force in North Africa. The SAS also sabotaged supply lines, planted mines, and sowed confusion across Rommel's rear. What made these operations so effective was not just the physical damage, but the psychological impact. Axis troops never knew when or where the SAS might strike. A handful of men created the impression of a far larger force, tying down enemy resources in defense. David Stirling's leadership was unconventional. He valued initiative and imagination over strict discipline. In his view, soldiers needed freedom to act creatively in the field. He recruited men who were independent thinkers, risk-takers, and often outsiders within the army. Stirling himself was not a traditional officer. His casual demeanour and disdain for rigid hierarchy made him approachable, though sometimes controversial. This culture of independence became a hallmark of the SAS. Stirling fostered camaraderie, daring, and trust, qualities that remain embedded in the regiment's ethos today. Stirling's success could not last forever. In 1943, he was captured by German forces in Tunisia after an intense manhunt by the Gestapo. Nicknamed the Phantom Major by the enemy for his elusive tactics, Stirling had become a marked man. He spent the rest of the war as a prisoner, including time in the notorious Colditz Castle. After the Second World War, David Stirling's career took an unorthodox turn that kept him firmly in the orbit of conflict and politics, albeit from the shadows. Far from settling into quiet retirement, the founder of the Special Air Service became a pioneer in the emerging world of private military contracting. Through his company, WatchGuard International, Stirling offered military training and security services to governments across Africa and the Middle East, laying foundations for what would later become a global industry. His anti-communist convictions also drew him into the political undercurrents of post-war Britain. In the 1970s, he secretly established a network known as GB75, a contingency plan that envisaged mobilizing loyal ex-servicemen in the event of political unrest or a socialist seizure of power. To some, this was patriotic foresight. To others, it bordered on subversion. Alongside these clandestine pursuits, Stirling maintained strong ties with right-wing governments in Rhodesia and South Africa, advising on counterinsurgency and security operations. By the time he was knighted in 1990, shortly before his death, Stirling's legacy had expanded beyond his wartime exploits. He had become both a symbol of military ingenuity and a figure of political controversy. David Stirling's vision reshaped military strategy. His emphasis on small, agile forces operating with precision has influenced not only the SAS, but also special forces worldwide. The US Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and countless other units trace elements of their philosophy back to Stirling's desert raids. At its heart, Stirling's genius was recognizing that wars are not won by size alone, but by speed, surprise, and innovation. In the unforgiving North African desert, he proved that a handful of men with explosives and imagination could achieve what battalions could not. David Stirling remains one of the most remarkable figures of the Second World War. He was a dreamer, a rule breaker, and ultimately a pioneer. From the sands of North Africa, his SAS grew into a legend, an elite force feared by enemies and revered by allies. His legacy lives on every time a small unit of special forces carries out a mission where stealth, daring, and imagination are the keys to victory.